One of you guys recently reached out to me asking about the topics to cover in terms of your research for GAMSAT Section 2. Now, for context, Section 2 has the opportunity to cover a range of different topics, both for Task A and for Task B. And GAMSAT companies offer different lists. Sometimes they're super long, sometimes they're a little shorter, proposing the potential topics that you'll face in Section 2 in Task A and Task B. But they're all different and some of them aren't as accurate. So I thought today I'd address that and offer you guys a new list that's purely my opinion. Of course, this isn't official or anything. I don't work for ACER, so I can't actually know. But from what I've seen, what I've come across, and the stuff that's in the practice tests, we can kind of boil it down to four main things. So I'm going to tell you what those things are today, and hopefully this will help you with your Section 2 practice and help you get your examples and research together for March. Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Kate Robson and I scored 80 in Section 2 of the GAMSAT in the 2021 March sitting, and since then I've kind of just been helping you guys also do that, making videos to try and contribute to the Section 2 space and the quality of the resources out there. So if you like this content, feel free to subscribe, like this video so I know that you liked it and in case you want me to keep making more content like this. Like I said, I can't be 100% sure, but from what I know about Section 2, from what I've seen, and trying to keep in mind what I've learned from ACER directly and from the actual GAMSAT itself, I think there are kind of four main topics that I would cover if I was a bit stressed about not having a great general knowledge of the world and not knowing what I should be researching and how I can on Earth save time and learn everything that I need to be able to write that great background knowledge and context into your essays. Before I mention them, I also just want to say that often you actually know more than you think you do. So before you do this, think about the stuff that you actually know about the world already. You probably know stuff just from living in a society. You know more than you think you do, so tap into your knowledge just from living in the world, from stuff that you've read, from stuff that you've seen on TV, and try and use that knowledge in your essays if you can. However, you're probably here for the list, so the four things that I would generally focus on researching for my Section 2 background knowledge are: number 1, politics; number 2, social justice issues; number 3, love and relationships; and number 4, individuality. I'll expand on these a little bit one by one, but those are kind of the four main topics. And I know that they're very broad, but there's a reason I've kept them kind of broad, because within them you can go into greater detail. So number 1, we've got politics. The stuff that I would research to get a greater understanding of politics so I can use it in my essays is things like capitalism, communism, fascism, totalitarianism, socialism, authoritarianism, anarchism, democracy, Australian and American politics, Western versus Eastern political ideologies and systems, and perhaps I'd throw in some political philosophers and philosophy in there, like John Locke, Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, David Hume, Machiavelli, all of those old white dudes. You don't have to cover all of these topics, you can cover more if you want to, but I think gaining a general understanding of all of these topics would really help you be able to understand politics for what it is and how it influences our world. Obviously, you can throw in examples as well about specific political events that have happened in recent years or throughout history and use that as a context for yours. So like the French Revolution kind of changed the political ideals of Western Europe, and that spread throughout the world with like liberalism and things like that. Australian politics are heavily influenced by British politics, social democracy, the idea of a representative democracy, but it's obviously not as representative as we say it is. So just kind of having an understanding of what politics is, how it influences our lives, and all of the ideologies and things that the political theory behind it all that proposes how people should be governed and the world should run. The second thing that I would look into is social justice issues. Number 1, Climate change. We all are very aware of climate justice and injustice that's going on at the moment because Greta Thunberg and her high school army led the way, paved the way to fight for this issue that politicians and governments have been mostly neglecting. Other things that you can touch on are things like feminism, gender and sexuality issues, racial injustice issues, discrimination, incarceration rates. You also might want to learn a bit about voting rights, the refugee crisis, unequal access to healthcare, and discrepancies in the kind of education that people are getting around the world. If you gain a solid understanding of the main social justice issues that are either facing your society or the globe or a particular society in the world, then I think having an awareness of that and showing that awareness will really show the markers that you understand the world for what it is, what's going on right now, what's important, and what needs to be fought for and improved. Now, the third and fourth topics are kind of where we start to move towards task B. And I think we can kind of separate all of the main themes that come up into two broad ones. The first one is love and relationships. The second one is individuality. So love and relationships, I've put this one together because I think there are a lot of things about the GAMSAT themes that they offer that tend towards things like friendship, romance, love, forgiveness, envy, death, connection, time, things that bind us to other people in the world. Psychometrically, obviously, this is probably because they're judging us on our ability to empathize, care for other people, how we deal with other people, and to get that out of us, to understand potentially how we deal with people and the way that we have dealt with people in the past, or the way that we think about other people. So I think that's why love and relationships is a pretty broad category, but you can expect it to be mentioned in your Task B themes. And the final one that I think probably covers honestly the most of Task B is individuality and all of that encompasses it. There are a number of themes that you could kind of put under this larger umbrella. The main ones that I can think of are conformity, ambition, doubt, prejudice, innocence, childhood, aging, wisdom, knowledge, growth, courage, happiness, hope, and imagination. Of course, this list is not exclusive, and by all means, I haven't covered everything that the GAMSAT might be throwing at you. Last year, I think in September, there might have been a question about marketing, about technology or social media or something from what I hear. So it sounds like they're starting to change the theme slightly from the more traditional ones to be more to do with the modern world and to change it up a bit. So don't see this list as exhaustive, but these are the ones that I would cover to kind of gain a solid understanding of the world and how it works, and then I could kind of infuse in my essays and just sprinkle throughout. The way that I would organize these examples for March or for my GAMSAT, whenever that is well, you kind of have two options. The first one is that you could make a table. I've put together a table here just as an example, but essentially your first column might be the name of it, the second one might be the broad topic out of the four, the third one might be an example from that topic, and the fourth one might be any resources that you use to read about that. Could be Wikipedia, it might be a book or a novel or a poem or an article, something like that. So the one that I've got here is communism as an example. It fits under the politics umbrella. The example I've got is Maoism and Mao's cult of personality during his reign in the 1960s in China, and the events that kind of were involved in that, like the Cultural Revolution, the Great Leap Forward, and the Long March. And the reading that I've used to learn about that started kind of mostly with Ah Cheng's King of Trees, which is a great series of novellas if you're interested. So I'd work on that throughout, keep adding as you go. It's kind of like a structured way to organize your examples, but it might help you collect them and kind of keep them in one place. The second option is that you build a mind map. The way that I'd create this, I'd probably create 4 big circles: politics, love and relationships, social justice issues, and individuality, and then kind of just create branches off that and work on that throughout. I'd probably do it online to keep it easy rather than on a giant piece of paper, but I'd keep adding to this based on any research that you come across, any articles, things you find interesting, and any examples that you can think of. I think a mind map is also good for connecting those dots and making those links between topics, which is quite helpful in GAMSAT essays for reasons that we'll talk about now. So obviously, after we've done all of this research and this preparation, we want to be able to put it into our essays. How do we do that? Honestly, I would actually look at your notes every time you're writing an essay in the beginning. It's also okay just to look up examples as you're writing in the beginning, trying obviously not to take too much time, but once I think you write examples into your essays, at least I find this, it's so much easier to remember them the next time. So just practice using different examples in each of your essays as you go, and then practice using the same example for a range of different topics in different essays. Doing this will help you memorize them, which is ultimately what you want, right? You want an arsenal of examples that you can pick from in the day that are just in your head, so that you can say, oh, I know this example about China, I know this example about the French Revolution, I know this example about Australian Indigenous rights, and I'm going to pull from them and use them and incorporate them into my essays. The thing that you want to focus on doing though is sprinkling them, like I said, throughout your essays. Show the markers that you have an understanding of the world, that you can create links between topics, that you don't have to go for half an hour to research something and form an answer on it, but you've already kind of done the background work, the work behind the scenes to gain a better understanding of the world so that you can employ that in your essays and show that you understand. Also, when you're writing, challenge yourself to ask why something is happening. If your example is the Black Lives Matter movement, for example, ask yourself, where did this come from in American history? Why did the Black Lives Matter movement take the stage last year and over the last couple of years? Where are those problems rooted from? Well, then you can start to think about slavery, America's history of colonialism, power imbalances in American authority, and America's history of racism. All in all, I would start doing this now rather than later and try to enjoy it. I know it can be difficult to feel like you have to know so much about the world, but getting to know the world better and becoming a more aware citizen is something that will serve you not only in the GAMSAT, but hopefully throughout the rest of your life. I've become such a more aware citizen of the world since sitting the GAMSAT. I've read so much more, my knowledge has just expanded, and I think that's a positive thing. So try and look at it as a positive, even if you do hate reading or you hate politics or whatever. Try and approach it with a good attitude and make sure that you collect your examples nicely, you work on it over time, you don't try and do it all in one go because it will just be too overwhelming. And most importantly, you memorize them so that you can use them throughout your essays whenever you want to in a range of different contexts. That's all I've got for you guys today. I hope that was helpful, and I'll see you for the next video very soon.
So girls, move it around. If you see your main dog, get the brother a pound and just come on, just breathe, stop, for real, and give it what you got, just